Here you go!
Invincible Season 4 wrapped up recently, and with it has come some amount of discourse. Plenty of people are reacting negatively to it for equally stupid culture war nonsense reasons, but today we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the 4th episode of the season, Hurm. Hurm released to a lot of confusion and annoyance by the fandom for multiple reasons. The general takeaway by many being that it is simply filler added in to space out the future story arcs adapted from the comics. I'm going to be dispelling this idea entirely, and without any more preamble, let's get right into the meat. First, let's ask the question of why. Why was this added into the story at all? I say added, and that is because the Invincible comics did not have this arc with Damien Darkblood in any shape or form. He was, as far as I know, a forgettable side character. As far as I know, because I am not an Invincible comics reader. That said, there's plenty as is in the show already to compare with the episode Hurm. Hurm was a self-contained episode, one that doesn't involve the other characters or arcs much at all, and Invincible has precedent for doing this. Episode 4 of Season 3, You Were My Hero, has a similar arc in Mark being taken to the future taken over by the Immortal. Many understand on the face of it how this episode means to set up future conflicts, with Immortal mentioning things like an important sickness of some kind.
You look thin. Weak. Have you been sick again? I thought they found a cure for you.
This isn't about me.
What you might not know, however, is that this episode, beyond its interesting concept, also serves to set up the fight with Powerplex, the Invincible War, and Conquest. Many stories do this in different forms, making an arc where the conflict is a smaller version of the wider conflict, to put its core ideas under a different lens. Powerplex is as he is because of Invincible. He saw how Mark couldn't save his sister and niece, and is then bent on getting back at him through revenge, and convincing the public of his responsibility. Powerplex's powers, of only getting stronger the more you damage him, is a way of conveying that grief which continues to grow. The Immortal is as he is because Invincible, in the future, insisted that Immortal be the one to rule, and turned the world into one big police state because he wanted Mark back, endlessly living bent around that grief.
This is about the thousands of people murdered and the countless other lives destroyed. Why is above the law? Why does never pay for his crimes? Where is it where people are trying to put their world back together?
You left me here. You made me into this monster. How many more must die because of your mistakes?
Angstrom is another person who was hurt by Invincible, and then lives the rest of his life bent around him, using his tech and madness to try and smear Mark's name and put on more responsibility. The Immortal is shown to have gone mad over time as a result of living so long, not even recognizing that Mark is younger than he is supposed to be, and on top of that, he maintains his rule with an army of robots.
Not only have you destroyed his planet, but you've also destroyed him. Every single person who survives will forever think of this when they remember his name, even if they know it was you. He killed so many. People I knew, people I loved. Millions died because of him.
Your brain's scrambled. You've lost track of what memories are yours and which come from the others.
I've had hundreds of wives. I've outlived everyone I've ever loved. Do you know what that does to a man? Century after century after century.
Invincible. We've been waiting for you.
Lastly, we have Conquest, who is presented as this inevitable responsibility that Mark must answer to, Anissa setting that up for him, and the entire season largely revolving around that idea. Conquest himself is secretly lonely at the top, yet he was also the one given this role of forcing Mark's hand. Either he destroys everything, or Mark kills Conquest. Immortal is the sole ruler of Earth, yet he has nobody besides his robots. He is desperate for Mark to come back. He rules the world as a police state, strictly because he wants Mark to come back and kill him. It's either Mark kills Immortal, or Immortal continues to destroy the world. It's an inevitable responsibility because Mark literally sees himself from the future go through with it, knowing that this must happen.
You were given orders. You were given time. You were given more leeway than most, and yet I find this planet unprepared for the arrival of our Viltrum Empire.
You don't understand. All this is my fault.
I am a victim of my own success. Conquest. I don't even get a real name.
You need to repay the debt you owe me. Whether you want to or not. That's why I set all this in motion. You will kill me, whether you want to or not. Or you and so many more will die.
Through just one small arc, Invincible is able to set up its key players in the final episodes. That is exactly what is going on with Hurm. Hurm on the surface appears to be completely disconnected from everything, yet it contains within it a perfect miniature version of the entire season's conflict. Think about it this way. Mark early on in the episode gets his soul searching broken up by Cahor, it being a responsibility he has to answer to. Then, that responsibility gets broken up by Damien, who kickstarts the episode. Then, when everything there is done, guess what happens for a third time?
The time for war is upon us.
This has been true for every episode 4 of every season. Mark is thrust into something which feels disconnected from the other conflicts, but which is in actuality deep relevance with the entire season.
Rumors of the one they call invincible have spread like wildfire. Your speed, your strength. You are the only one who can save our people from the meteor showers destroying our world.
Okay, listen,
Angstrom Levy, we just discussed, paralleled the madness going on with Immortal. But in Season 2, that madness has a completely different parallel. Mark. Angstrom as a character is meant to pinpoint the point, yeah, Mark is at his life, having to decide who he is, the mental struggle with all the things he is connected to as a person.
I don't get to be sad. I'm part of the problem. I'm the reason all those people in Chicago died.
You didn't kill those people, Mark. Omni-Man did.
But I didn't save them.
You saved a ton of them. But you also went through an emotional tumble dryer, and I need to know your head stops spinning before I let you back in the game, so no. Not yet.
You can't stop me. I don't need your permission to be a superhero.
You know who else said that to me?
I'm not my dad. I'm not my dad!
This multiversal conflict is in reality a way to highlight what it is like for him to grow up without his father. The way he must not become him, being a balance of all the things that make up who he is. Episode 4 here is ironic because him meeting with Omni-Man is irrelevant in a lot of ways to how he distances himself from Nolan, how he learns to become himself. Nolan is grappling with his humanity just as Mark is, and the pressure that he puts on Mark to fight like a Viltrumite is a core part of where the season ends and builds up into Season 3.
Do you regret attacking my family now? Do you?
Dad! I'll never let anyone ever! Hurt my family!
Season 3 is about the inevitability of his growth, and the time travel aspect of Season 2's finale is the perfect way to transition between those ideas. Rex says that,
Oh, thanks. I don't know if I would have survived here.
You did, but you wouldn't like what you had become.
and that is the passing of batons in these ideas, who he's learning he is, versus this oncoming idea of inevitable growth and perpetual grief. Every other character in Season 2 is going through some kind of similar growth by facing their identity and trauma. Nolan, Debbie, Rick, Donald, Rudy, Amanda. I can go on, but the point is clear. Season 2 is about Mark learning how to grow after high school, really becoming himself. The Viltrumites, while being the overarching conflict, aren't the main issue there, and so thematically, Episode 4 here is still a disconnected, single-episode plotline which relates to the entire season's wider ideas. Debbie hits the nail on the head with what she says to Angstrom while he's terrorizing them.
I know the son I raised, and he is no killer.
You sure about that?
You make it sound like this is the one world where Mark is good, and you're the one who's bad.
What?
Oh, that's why you're so angry. Because you turned out rotten here, and Mark is the hero for once.
You don't know anything!
Angstrom became the thing he didn't want to be, going mad with his heritage and emotions.
I won't build my utopia with blood!
All the sides of who Mark could be, the things he could have easily chosen to do, makes up a singular person. How unique he is to be here and now. The idea of fighting like a Viltrumite, becoming the thing you sought to destroy, being the core idea in that titular line, I thought you were stronger. Cecil reassures him, but Mark affirms simply,
you're not him. You weren't there.
So now we can end off this recap with the first season's version of this, Neil Armstrong Eat Your Heart Out. Now it might make sense why the Sequids are this huge overarching conflict in all of Invincible. All these arcs parallel each other and communicate similar ideas, and Season 1 is largely about this secrecy, this terror lurking in the dark. Something that I find deeply interesting, as someone who hasn't read the comics, is knowing that the Reanimen were something that developed long into Invincible's story, and I want to explain now why they were condensed this way for Season 1. All of Season 1 is building up that mystery. Is Nolan under some kind of control? This idea that there could be powerful creatures out there taking over people, assimilating and suppressing. If you know the end of Season 4, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Viltrumites are parallel through each of these terrible forces, the Reanimen and the Sequids. What's going on with the Mars mission is a bit complex, so it's easy to forget all the moving parts, but Shapesmith, the Martian who replaces the astronaut, is actually a key character in paralleling Mark throughout the entire show. An alien who goes his own way against his people and ends up in an awkward spot, having to prove himself and learn how to be? That's just Mark again, but in a funny new shape. Scratch that. Somehow, Shapesmith is a better parallel for Nolan than Mark. And it's because of how Nolan is alienated from his people after he goes his own way and learning how to be compassionate. Isn't that crazy? Okay, there's something that's even crazier later on. See you. The Sequids taking over Mars, Shapesmith leaving the astronaut he impersonated behind, all that in parallel to this idea of assimilation and one's true calling. How the Martians say the humans must be culled in order to not risk the Sequids taking one over. Both these species, the Martians and the Viltrumites, appear good on the surface, but say the humans must be culled for the sake of a greater good. Reanimen are just the same, then. Sinclair thinks it's for the sake of progress, making better people as we understand the Viltrumites think they are. The terror lurking in the dark, the supposed hero being evil, and the supposed villains, devils, being the ones actually in the right. Now we finally wrap back around to Damien Darkblood. His arc in Season 1 serves to shed light on the ironic morality of Nolan, the way things are far less black and white than they seem, the perfect character for that choice being a demon, something that people understand as an inherently evil being. Hurm is a greater culmination of this idea when the lines have been so blurred by Season 3. Mark has had to become stronger over and over, being faced with the need to kill, it being presented as the only way forward, an inevitability that people will die. Season 4 firmly cements Mark in that position now and forever, that there is great and terrible weight to his position in life. We learn in this season so much about the Viltrumites and Nolan, and humanizing these characters makes things more tense than they ever have been. It's easy to see how this season is about necessary uneasy alliances by looking at the arc going on with Titan. Titan has consistently served to parallel Mark and the Viltrumites, the need to protect family, balancing that with deeming it necessary to keep a tight control on people. Titan's back and forth with Mr. Liu, ending in their mutual control under Machine Head, is a parallel with Mark deciding to work with Nolan and Thetis for the sake of defeating Thrag, as well as the subsequent aftermath. Alliances are made, tested, all have moving parts, and this is the core idea with the season, the thing that builds up to the final point Mark is faced with for the finale. People need to work together in order to prosper, and that idea is volatile, difficult, explored in all these different ways. We have so much history put onto us, so many people working together, getting introduced, intermingling, and facing their pasts, and it culminates in Mark having to make a hard decision in order to finally end this conflict. With all these ideas laid out, we can finally talk about the actual episode this video is named after. Hurm. Hurm is, I think, one of the best episodes in the entire series, and is the best executed version of this format so far. What we've discussed with episode 4 always being a disconnected, yet deeply relevant, miniature version of each season's conflict. The episode opens with a brief recap of these issues, with Mark backsliding on his perceived similarity to his father, and the terrible choices he made with Russ Livingston and Titan. This concept of doing something terrible like this, reining in responsibility with tough choices, being the perfect thing to parallel with a concept such as demons. Demons, the way they tempt us with things we indulgently want, the responsibility there, being why this episode even makes sense in the first place from a creative point of view, why these ideas are relevant. To explain how this episode functions as a miniature version of the entire season, I am going to now list every parallel there is in a linear order. Volcanica is a parallel for Thrag, and Darkblood and the rest are supposed to stand in for the team sent to fight the Viltrumite War. For instance, the process of Darkblood losing his sister Dominus, that is to set up Mark being incapacitated by Conquest, Darkblood then standing in for Oliver, and Satan standing in for, shockingly, Alan mostly, and his subsequent rise to power. Traits like his humor and shocking muscle growth being very obvious parallels, as well as the fact they both get given this secret weapon of sorts. We also are treated to a lot of lore about the underworld, and this too is like the Viltrumites, how we get much lore about Nolan specifically and the rest of the Viltrumites, seeing their entire history, how order has been rebuilt several times, that being why there are multiple ages, as Darkblood describes. Just as the Viltrumites were first communicated to us as good and then revealed to be staunchly evil, only to then show us how their existence is tragic and age-spanning, so too are demons revealed to be the same way. Both of them have gone through several layers of unknowing assumptions and demonization, being oppressively violent cultures. The scene with Mark refusing to call the action with saving Hell is the same process he is going through with having to accept the Viltrumite War. Everything is being turned on him when all he wants to go back to is home. The Viltrumites threaten all existence, and so too do the Vile, the antagonists Clan Darkblood are trying to defeat. When they get to the pit where the Molten Crown lies, if you can believe it, this too is a parallel for things the main characters go through, with the added bonus of it being hilarious. The fact that they have to go all the way to Viltrum, having nothing to do but talk, is what this scene is in reference to. There is a substantial amount of time in the show dedicated to the trips, the process of Mark being incapacitated and Oliver learning more about his father. All of this is told through this falling scene, which I think is kind of incredible. This is just an aside, but I love when Mark is thrust into an odd situation and he's just allowed to riff for a bit, asking pretty reasonable questions for the sake of humor.
No, I mean, you're a man who dresses like a bat, and your name is... well, you know, I mean, like, don't you think that's kind of lazy?
After the transformation with Satan, Damien describes hell as being a bedtime story. This, specifically, I find genius because it's a way of hearkening back to Nolan, what he described Viltrum as, a bedtime story of a world out there, something communicating all his ideals. How that even ties in with Nolan's choice to write books is so smart, with how it all synergizes. The pressure of what Damien says about a least of two evils, how Mark says there has to be a better way that doesn't involve killing, this is the essence of the entire season. To cap this comparison off, we have Volcanica announcing that Mark has merely delayed the inevitable, and the post-credits scene of the episode has it be explained that there is a reason for why she has shown up now of all times. This is something I can only guess about, but I have to imagine it is for a secret reason similar to how the Viltrumites are in actuality deeply in need of repopulation. I find it all very clever, and just in general, I love Damien Darkblood as a character. It's something I really love about Invincible, how there's enough room to insert things like Hellboy-esque elements into the narrative, coinciding well with its contemporaries/inspirations. A demon detective, it is something so inherently ironic, and I think well utilized. Again, I haven't read the Invincible comics, but I've absorbed some various bits of information about them. And so, the fact there are new arcs about dropped characters from the originals, I think is awesome. They managed to make new content that perfectly fit everything else. It's worth saying, this episode was written by the original creator of Invincible, Robert Kirkman. And so, it's so cool that it's entirely new material. In my opinion, it's Invincible at its best, with the foresight of everything the story is going to become. It's deeply necessary to the structure of the show, and for being a way to improve on what was lacking before in source material. We went into how the Reanimen were developed over the course of much of the comics, when the show did it all in the first season. How there, that plotline could be in much better service to the mystery of the Viltrumites, the building terror, how these things were rearranged and remade to greater effect. These arcs utilized in parallel to one another, in the best way possible. That is why Hurm is awesome, and why I needed to show that to you. Wrapping up, let me also briefly touch on the supposed controversy surrounding this episode too, with it so willingly depicting hell in an anachronistic way. To this I say, grow the hell up. You have to be secure in the idea of other people having opposing beliefs to your own, and be able to recognize its unimportance if you are unable to budge on those ideas. Today, and in other cultures, there are plenty of uncaring depictions of faith, or ones which serve to deconstruct the ideas of religion and use them to their own creative ends. Destroying people who have opposing beliefs to your own, and not accepting the differences in people, I think will only drive you deep into despair. It's a hell of its own kind. And let me tell you from experience, yes, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Infernal world, and thou profoundest hell, receive thy new possessor, one who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. To be brave enough to post such controversial takes, yet announce my confidence in them so openly, why, I'd have to be... Thanks for watching. I hope I was able to convince some people that this episode is good, actually. It really shocks me that there was such an outcry about it, though, to be fair, most of the outcry was on Zitter, so you can kind of discern the validity of it just from that. That said, see you next time, maybe? I don't know if I'll make another video about Invincible, but I've thought about making one explaining why Amber is a smart character in the show. Her explicitly being a better Spider-Man sort of two different worlds type of conflict. Versus her counterpart in the comics, who was somehow both fittingly and ironically more of a riff on Gwen Stacy than anything else. If that sounds interesting, please leave a comment and consider subscribing, plus hitting the bell to stay tuned for future videos. I have a lot of different forms of media I intend to cover, and this kind of deconstruction is a common thing I do in all my videos, preferring to communicate artistic intent with things versus any other kind of media analysis. So, yeah. Let's look forward to Season 5. Have a good night, and take care. Bye-bye!